Welcome back to a new video. I should like to start by complaining a bit about the weather. This has absolutely nothing to do with the topic I was going to talk about. It's just, we went from spring straight into summer, and I'm really bummed about it. I'm really bummed. Anyways, summer is not my favorite. It's actually my least favorite season of all time. So, I'm trying not to be too annoyed about it, but I think that ship may have sailed. Anyways, welcome back. Lovely to see you again. I thought that I would talk for a bit about the reader space and book reviews and such. Years ago, I did book reviews upon request for indie authors. They would reach out to me, I would read the book, and I would review the book on YouTube, blog spaces, social media, Goodreads, Amazon, wherever. That I wasn't paid, all I got was a copy of the book, and then I read the book and reviewed the book. So I would review these books, kind of help authors get started. There were a lot of fantasy books, obviously. I read primarily fantasy, some horror, some sci-fi, some other genres thrown in. But I did this for probably 2 years, if I'm remembering correctly. Time gets a little squishy in my brain. And it was great. I loved doing the book reviews. I loved reading the books by indie authors. There were some that I didn't like, and I just didn't review those. I would always contact the author and say, hey, this book isn't for me. Here's why. And I think, this is your audience, or here are some issues that might need a second round of editing or whatever. And I would never put those reviews out into the world. So I stopped doing that because of various health issues that I was having, as well as I was in the middle of moving house, and there were lots of other things going on in my life. So I stopped doing book reviews. I focused just on my writing, just on editing for clients, and then I moved, got my health sort of controlled, if not anything else, but I decided that, I really missed doing book reviews. So I decided I was going to start up again. I didn't take requests for book reviews from other authors. I have decided that is since a bit difficult, and I'll explain why in a minute, but I have a whole bunch of books that I want to read by indie authors, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do book reviews again. So at the start of this year, I started doing book review videos on YouTube again, and you will notice, if you've been paying any attention, hello, you will notice that there was a bit of a break in there. Part of it was the fact that I kind of ran out of books to review. See, I'm a mood reader, and I wasn't in the mood for any of the books that I had on my list, so I didn't do any of that. But the biggest portion was that I had seen someone on social media who was helping authors kind of curate their accounts and do that such, and that's one of the things I've been working on this year. And they said, do not do book reviews. And I said, okay, wait, why? And the answer was that authors are not wanted and do not belong in reader spaces. So I kind of took a pause. I was already kind of on pause for book reviews anyways, simply because I was reading other things, trad published stuff. I wasn't in the mood for the books I had on my list, that sort of a thing. And I said, okay, why would they say that? Now, as an author, I do not read the reviews of my books. I have people who give me feedback before it's published, but once it's published, once it's out there in the world, that's none of my business. If people love my book, wonderful, I'm happy for them. I'm thrilled to be able to write a book that they love. If they don't love my book, I don't want to know about it. It's none of my business. So I do not spend time looking at reviews of my books in person. Occasionally, when I'm pulling off ISBN info, or I'm putting together links or whatnot, I'll catch a glimpse of my book on Amazon, for instance, and it'll have however many reviews, and I'll go, oh, okay, that's up from the last time I looked. And that's great. But I will not go and read reviews of my books. Part of it is because I really don't have the mental capacity to internalize and to process all of the things that people are saying. If they love the book, I'm really thrilled. That's great. I don't need that emotional boost that people tell me they love the book. I have had the feedback already. People tell me what they like, what they don't like. And from there, it kind of just goes right over my head. Oh, yes, they love the book. Oh, that's great. That's lovely. I'm so pleased. But it doesn't really hit that hard. Whereas the negative reviews absolutely will hit hard. And I will very much be the sort of person who goes and gets into a funk over that sort of a thing. So I learned very, very early on, do not read the reviews. And do not interact with reviewers because they will be very brutally honest about their opinions, or sometimes they'll just be mean because they don't like you as an author, as a person, whatever. And I'm not going to get involved in that. That's none of my business, which is part of the reason why I stopped offering book reviews to indie authors, because if I didn't like a book for whatever reason, it just wasn't my cup of tea, or I found character X to be a bit of a bully, or this situation was a red flag for me, or hey, the editing on this really needs work, I didn't want to write those reviews. I try very hard not to put extra negativity out into the world unless I'm complaining about the weather. The weather. Anyways, I try very hard not to put extra negativity out into the world. I try very hard to keep things positive for my own mental health, as well as just the world has enough negativity out there. So if I don't like a book, I'm not going to write about it. 9 times out of 10, it's because I wasn't the target audience. And there's no point in me saying, hey, I didn't like this book because I was the wrong person to be reading it. That's just silly. I'll say, hey, for people who like XYZ genre, then go ahead. This is a great book for you, just not for me. That sort of a thing. So when I was offering book reviews as a service, a free service, people could just request my reviews, then I ran into many instances where I said, hey, this book isn't for me. And instead of posting a review, it was then left up to me to contact the author and say, I'm not going to do a review because this book isn't for me for whatever reason. And that became kind of a conversation that I grew to dread. I hated that. Most of the time, the authors were very understanding. They said, oh, I understand completely. Thanks for not putting out a bad review, even though it was just, the wrong audience, that sort of a thing. But some were very mean about it, as is the way with people sometimes. And it got to me. So as an author, I know how difficult it is for readers, reviewers to review a book and say, hey, this wasn't for me. And I didn't want to, as an author, put the burden on anybody to ever worry about the fact that I was going to be looking at things and paying close attention or calling reviewers out. That is not something I ever want to do. In that sort of a situation, yeah, I absolutely agree. Authors do not belong in reader spaces. I should not have anything to do with the reviewers of my book unless I'm sending out art copies for people who want one. That's an entirely different thing. And I don't see any reason why I should be in a reviewer space as an author of my books. However, I am still a reader. I read a lot of books. I read traditionally published books. I read indie published books. I read hybrid books. I read anything that comes across my desk that looks interesting to me. I will say, hey, yeah, I'll read that. I'll pick it up. These days, I tend to be a little bit pickier because I'm trying to read more physical books than ebooks, which is an entirely different conversation for another time. I'm a little bit pickier these days about the books I'm picking up, but if it's an indie book, I don't care. I'm going to read it, and if I like it, then I absolutely want to tell the world about it, because you know what? There are a bunch of readers out there like me who say, hey, I want this cozy fantasy with a talking cat or whatever it was that I've read, and I want to share it, and I want to go onto the reader groups that I'm a part of and say, hey, other readers, here's this really good book. And I don't think that it matters that I'm also an author, that I have books out there in the world, because my enjoyment of said book does not have anything to do with what other people think of my books, if that makes sense. It's none of my business what people are saying about my book, but I want to share about this other book that I read. So I happen to be an author, but I'm a reader, and I'm going to exist in reader spaces because I'm going to talk about the books that I'm reading. I am going to continue doing book review videos. I will not be taking requests for reviews from authors. If they say, hey, I want you to review my book, I'm not going to do that. If I see an author whose book sounds very interesting and I've actually put out a request on Threads or something, say, hey, send me some cozy fantasy recs, or I want a sweet romance, or whatever, and authors share their stuff and I go, oh, that looks interesting, and I read it, absolutely, I'm going to review about it. That's not the same thing as an author saying, hey, I'm going to submit my book to you to review on whatever day. It's entirely different. It's a voluntary thing. I'm using my own money to get the book, that sort of a thing. It's very different. But I am going to continue to review books on here, on social media, on Amazon, I don't like Goodreads so much. I know that Goodreads is a useful ecosystem, but I don't love it. I use Storygraph these days. So I'm going to keep reviewing books, and as an author, I absolutely want people to like my book. I mean, I'm trying to sell books here. I'm trying to make a living off of this. It matters. But I don't think it's any of my business what people are actually saying. I don't think I belong in any space where people are talking about my book necessarily. It's just, if you don't like my book, that's fine. I don't need to know about it. I'm sorry that it didn't jive with you, but that's okay. Everybody likes different things. I do my best to put out a really good book. I make sure that I have, plot points gone over. I have editing. There's always going to be typos. I am a professional editor, and I still have typos. I've come to take it as a sign that I'm actually writing something as a human. Anyways, so do authors belong in reader spaces? When it comes to their books, no, I don't think they do. I don't think that Brandon Sanderson or Sarah J. Maas or whoever should be hanging out where readers are talking about their books either for or against. I think that's just kind of weird. It's really none of my business what people think. I don't ever want anyone to have to curate their thoughts because they're afraid I might see them or call them out. That is not okay by me. But should authors be readers? Yeah, absolutely. Writing and reading go hand in hand. If you're not reading, you can't really be a good writer. And as a reader, therefore, I think that it's perfectly okay for me to exist in spaces where people are talking about books that they're reading. I think it's perfectly okay for me to go and review books on YouTube or on social media and say, hey, here's this really awesome book that I read by this author that needs more love. Or here's this really awesome book that I read by this author that is absolutely massive and probably doesn't need more love, but I enjoyed it anyways, so I'm going to talk about it. It's my prerogative as a reader, and it's separate from my life as a writer, even though writing and reading go hand in hand. So I am going to keep putting out book reviews. If someone has a problem with that, well, they can find somewhere else to be. As an author, I'm going to exist in a reader space. It doesn't mean that I think that our society has become very much segmented, where people are afraid to exist in places where they might receive criticism or where they might get shouted at for being who they are in whatever space. And you know what? I'm tired of that. I think people, if they love a thing, they should be able to talk about it. And it shouldn't matter whether or not they're part of whatever fandom or whatever segment of the population, whatever group. If I love a book, I'm going to talk about it. That's just how it is. So, anyways, that was my bit of a rant. I hadn't realized how much that one comment about authors not posting book reviews and not talking about other books kind of got to me, because I love books and I want to talk about them. And what should my being an author have to do with the fact that I love these books? Anyways, I hope you have a fantastic day. Enjoy whatever weather you're having as much as you possibly can. I am trying. I promise I'm trying to get into the spirit of summer. It's just a bit difficult this year. Anyways, have a great day. Happy reading. Happy reading. And I will see you next time. Hopefully with a book review. I have a couple up my sleeve that I've been kind of holding on to. So I'll see you next time. Bye.